Welcome, everyone, to episode 2 of the World Review. This episode, we're going to look at best album artwork. You can find us on YouTube and Spotify and also SoundCloud, where you could listen and you could watch on YouTube, and on social media at the World Review on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. You can also look us up at theworldreview.com, which has all the links to the episodes and links to social media. We're going to have Scott come on in a moment, and we're going to discuss some of our what we think is the best album artwork. Okay, so Scott is on with us today, and we're going to be reviewing album artwork for rock albums, all different kinds of albums, but specifically for the artwork itself. So the first one up is a Judas Priest album called "Sad Wings of Destiny," and this is one that Scott picked. Okay, so what's your likeness for this?
Well, I always like Judas Priest's album covers. For the most part, they're very artistic. This particular one though, it just hits me in a certain way, and I think this and maybe one or two other Judas Priest album covers would make an awesome tattoo.
Yeah.
And it's just very colorful. There's a lot of meaning behind that. It's just really nice.
Hmm.
Um, Other than maybe screaming for vengeance and defenders of the faith, this one would be like up there as far as like let me get if I wanted a tattoo, like this would probably be something I would get.
Yeah, I know. I agree. I think that this is. I remember somebody made me. I borrowed this album for somebody. That's how I first found it, and I found it later. Do you remember the first time you saw this album or listened to it?
Man, it's probably back in high school. I was into various music before high school, but really got into this stuff like right before high school. And I think Matt Kadula, had me listen to this album. And I liked it. It's up there with like being one of their better albums, for
Yeah,
me.
He was big into this kind of a sound.
Yeah.
Um, do you now speaking? If we're specifically talking about artwork, did you collect these albums on vinyl because you could appreciate the artwork better than if you just had a cassette?
I would have back in the day, but I had no room for storage of albums. So, my sister had a lot of albums, so I always appreciated the album artwork because she had the albums. I've always gotten like the cassettes and stuff like that just because it just took up less space.
Yeah.
Sonically, obviously, it fails in comparison to vinyl,
Hmm.
but I always had my sister's albums to listen to if I wanted like higher quality.
I remember when my parents bought me a turntable, I would buy the albums and it had a cassette recorder. So I would just make a copy on a TDK. So that's why I had like both because I didn't want to buy everything twice. But
Yeah.
then I started buying cassettes because those bargain basement cassettes, they had some pretty good ones there for like $3. So this one was never in the bargain basement because it was probably just one of those albums that sold consistently.
Yeah.
All right. Do you know offhand who painted this or did the artwork? Any
No.
anything of that? Okay, that's really nice though. I like it. Okay, next one. So this is a Hendrix Axis Bold as Love. I like album covers that have lots of psychedelic colors to them. That's just an artistic thing. Um, Sort of kind of hinting on Hinduism and Indian culture a little bit, but very colorful. This is probably one of his better albums sound wise too, but artwork, it's one of my favorite because it's the one that's most memorable. There's a lot of albums of him and like Clapton with, his picture on the front, but this one's easy to remember because of the artwork and the color. Do you have any thoughts of this?
Oh, I do agree. It's very colorful, very bold.
Mhm.
And yeah, when you think Hendrix, this album cover just like pops out at you first,
Yeah, this is the
for
one I
sure.
always remembered. Okay, good. Next one. This is In Through the Outdoor by Led Zeppelin.
This one is great. Now we're getting into like some really cool artistic type artwork. Um, this artwork and album in particular is pretty interesting. When they first released this album, it was wrapped up in a brown paper bag with like a rubber stamp thing on the front saying Led Zeppelin Into the Outdoor. And the reason why they did that is because you were not sure of the album cover you were going to get. So basically, they released this with six different, actually, three different versions of the album cover with six different pictures in total. So you didn't know what you were getting when you were actually buying this. So, like the one that we're looking at right now is an image of somebody at one end of the bar looking at this guy sitting at the bar. The guy at the bar is like kind of burning a Dear John letter, must have had a bad breakup or whatever. However, if you flip the back of the album cover around, it showed you the reverse image of there's like that black lady at the end of the bar. You get her version of the bar looking at him the other way. So in theory, there are three different album covers. There are seven people in the bar when two people each are looking at him at the bar. So you get
Okay.
a different perspective. So front of the album cover will be like that girl at the end of the bar staring at him. You flip it around and you'll get this perspective.
Mhm.
Another one is the bartender looking at him, and you flip it around and you'll get somebody else's point of view.
Mhm.
And then, so but you weren't ever sure what you were going to get.
Mhm.
And I really liked it. And it was a really cool concept. So you don't know, like you might get this album cover, and a friend of yours might get it. It might be a completely different perspective, which is
Right.
awesome.
Different angle. Okay.
Different angle. But no. But it even gets better. The inner sleeve, the inner lining, when
Mhm.
you got it, on the original album was like a black and white picture, very small black dots on it, right?
Mhm.
And if you took a wet rag and wiped it, the image would change from black and white to full color, permanently full color. Um, and nobody knew this. I guess people probably found this out later on. But if you actually look at the album cover, like one version of the album cover, there is like a smear on the front of the album cover, which kind of hints to you, like if you swipe the inner sleeve, it will change color. And like, you'll see on the inner sleeve, there's like wine glass, cigarettes, an ashtray, dollar bill. If you kind of swipe it, the dollar bill goes from black and white to green, you know, and the wine glass turns to like a blue color, and I mean, I thought that was pretty smart for them to do that, and it was kind of creative. Makes you like, oh, what else is interesting on the album cover that you can try and find out?
Yeah, yeah, I like it. My thoughts about this artistically, this is what they call a sepia, like a
Sepia
black and white
tone.
photo, a sepia tone,
Yeah.
right? It's a sepia tone, and I like it because I like it's got like a very gritty feel to it,
Hmm.
and the bartender reminds me of the bartender from Star Wars at the Creature Cantina. His face, at least.
Mm.
I don't know. That's just a thing I notice. But yeah, I like this. I like photography as long as it's photography with a spin and not just a picture. Like having it different angles, sepia. So
Yeah.
it's very
Yeah.
good. Anything else?
Um, yeah, I think there was a whole story behind the bar. I think that it was at a bar in like London called the like they were trying to do a recreation of the old Absinthe house in New Orleans, and they did it in a bar in London. So it's supposed to like depict, like, I guess, like, a bar in like New Orleans, you know, back in the day.
Yeah, yeah. No, I like it. It's very good. I like the stuff on the ceiling too. Okay, let's go to the next one. Oh, this is the Moody Blues in Search of the Lost Chord. I believe this is 1967. And I like this because, again, psychedelic, but oil painting, very good use of color, and not the color is sort of gradient into like yellow, orange, red, and then the blues, and then the greens where the skull and the little baby is. Um, it's sonically it's a great album, but I picked it up specifically for its artwork. I saw it and I never heard this album before. I just picked it up because I like the artwork, and it turned out to be a great album too. And they have a lot of psychedelic songs on here, Tripping on Acid song, but it was sort of that kind of time. Um, yeah, they have a lot of great artwork early on because of the psychedelic period. Any thoughts on this?
Um, I'm not familiar with this album per se, but I mean, I do like some of Moody Blues' work.
Hmm.
Their work. This particular album cover is really, and I like it. It's nice. Again, it is psychedelic and it's very trippy, but it kind of reminds me of like the bomb, like the mushroom cloud, almost.
Yeah, I guess it's like life and death, you
Yes.
know,
I mean,
and
you could look at that way too, because you have the skull
mhm,
on the ground, and this kind of like coming up looks like a tree sprouting with the
mhm,
branches
yep,
above as
yep,
well.
hmm life and death, and I guess this could make a good tattoo also,
Yeah, it would.
because it's very detailed and uh, yeah. Okay, next one. All right,
Ah,
this is your Danzig 3
yeah,
album, I believe.
yes, this is Danzig 3, How the Gods Kill.
Okay.
This is a good album, Danzig album. His first album, awesome. Second album wasn't as good, but this one is good. Not as good as the first one. But I picked this album cover because this uses a Giger artwork in it. Now, those of you who don't know who Giger is, he's a Swedish and he just recently passed artist. He's the one who um, did the Aliens Xenomorph. He did
Yeah,
created
that's
the
what it
Xenomorph.
reminds me of. It kind of
Yeah,
reminds me of that.
and he also did Species, the creature in Species.
Hmm.
Um, but he's also on. He also did a few album covers. He, this one was he's noted for. The other album cover he did that he's noted for was another metal band called Celtic Frost or Celtic Frost, depending on where you're from. Megatherian, and the other one he did was the album cover for Emerson Lake and Palmer's Brain Salad Surgery.
Okay, I know
He
that one.
did that album cover. Now, any one of those album covers could have made this list, but I like this one because reminds me very much of um the Aliens Xenomorph.
Hmm.
But I don't know for the vinyl version of this. I'm not sure if they did the same thing as the CD version, but the CD version was a multi-panel fold out. So basically, it folded out to the full blown artwork, and it was like a mini poster. So it was like, you know, 3 panels down, 3 panels wide.
Hmm.
So basically, almost like a 15 by 15-inch poster almost.
Now,
Not,
what
sorry,
year did this come out? Do you remember what year listening to it?
92.
Oh, 92. Okay.
Yeah. So, and if anybody's wondering, this was based off of his, um, the artwork was called The Master and the Margarita,
Okay.
um, for Giger.
Now, I saw online, maybe it was just an online thing, but there was different shades of these. Some of them look more blue, some of them look more brown or gray. Was that the end product, or were there different shades of this? Like,
No, this is the actual shade of the album cover. I just
okay.
think it was probably people's lighting when they were taking the photograph or scanning it or whatever.
Hmm. Hmm.
But this is what the image looked like. All his artwork and images are going to be like kind of this tone. Some of his artwork maybe have a hint of blue, but they're all like this like gray tone almost.
Right, right. Okay, good. Anything you want to add?
Other than the fact that he did edit the photo for some reason. Um, the actual poster has a depiction of like the alien penis, but he substituted that with a dagger with Danzig's logo on the hilt of the dagger.
Okay.
But other than that, it's this is the original to the original picture. You know.
Okay. I like that. Unchanged. All right. Next one. All right, so this is Cream Wheels of Fire. So again, psychedelic, but this time black and white. So it really pushes creativity when you're using black and white and have to be psychedelic, because we always think of psychedelic as lots of color, but the font, and maybe not the font, but the way the letters are, it's very psychedelic. Probably one of their best albums too, but I really like the pencil drawings of, how creative this artist was just with, black and white. I like the little, whatever these are, flowers or plants, whatever he's just coming up with, and he's using different treatment on the letters. It's not all one type of thing, and different sizings too. So really like the light and the dark. It's a great album too. And what are your thoughts on this?
Well, the album, yes, it's definitely a good album. I'm not a huge fan of this album cover. I mean, it's nice, and yes, you're right. They got to be creative to keep it psychedelic. Just if you're going to do black and white, I would have preferred this obviously to be more in color. Be just will pop more. But I do like the fonts. They're not
Mhm,
all one font. They change it up on each of the words.
mhm.
Which is cool. Um, you know, uh, and I'm just wondering, like, nah, I'm okay with it.
They
I'm
sort they
not
sort
a big fan of it, but
they sort of
it's
rep-
nice.
they repeat the band name and the album name twice up here,
Yeah,
and then
yeah.
over here. I mean, I don't know what the reasoning with that was,
Well,
unless
they
it was
probably
hard to
like
read over here.
probably the true hardcore LSD fanatics would have been able to read the album cover, and the normal people not on drugs probably needed the straightforward one up at the top, to read.
That's a good point. Very good point. Okay, next one. Journey.
Journey Escape.
Okay.
This, I mean, first off, if you think iconic Journey albums, you think this one, right? And I think it's a cool album cover. Even though Journey, like Judas Priest, have all their album covers are great, and Journey, they use a lot of beetle scarabs in their you know um album covers and stuff. But I don't know, just the way this one is and the way they write Journey, it kind of looks almost an escape, almost looks futuristic and foreign, almost like if you watch the movie Predator, and the Predator has the symbols on his countdown before
Yeah,
the bomb explodes.
it's like his
That's
hieroglyphics or something.
exactly, that's what this kind of like reminds me of. And I just overall, I think it's just a pretty cool album cover. It's very simple
Mhm.
but cool.
Is this supposed to be like a light bulb? Because it looks like it's smashing glass or something.
No, I would think it's like, because it looks like a scarab beetle shuttle type thing. It's probably like they're escaping from the planet Earth, so they're busting out from the Earth. You know, I'm assuming. I just don't know you know the symbolism or of it.
Now they coded the other words escape,
Mhm.
but not journey. So what is the
No,
ESC 4P3? What is that?
that's escape.
And what is the word above it?
I think that's supposed to be journey, probably.
Oh, so they repeat journey in
Yeah.
kind of the hieroglyphics, but they have journey
Yeah,
on
but
the top.
look at it. The letters are flipped around. So the J is upside down. Then there's the O, right? The U is on its side.
Mhm.
The R is flipped around. Actually, right? And actually, it's all sideways. If you look at it,
Yeah.
if you turn the album on its side, it's journey spelt downwards.
Mm, okay. All right. Yeah, that's kind of, put a different, like, completely different, like, name on it, which is the same name, but it looks different when you first look at it.
Exactly.
Okay. Any last thoughts about this one?
No.
Okay. I like the color choices, though. A lot of
Yeah,
color in this one.
it's bold.
Hmm. All right. This is Genesis. Lamb Lies Down on Broadway. And uh, I like this album for the artwork of the photography, how he's cut out, different pictures, very gritty. The back album cover too has got more, and then this one opens up and it has a whole bunch of other photography. So, uh, very quickly, the story of this is about a kid, a young adult who's a spray can enthusiast, and him and his brother have to escape the police in Brooklyn and in New York City and running around. And it's it's very psychedelic, even though it doesn't visually look psychedelic. But it's one of my favorites because, again, I like black and white gritty artwork, kind of like in Through the Outdoor, where it's not just like a picture in color of a band, and this is kind of like just being more creative, and it all of the pictures tied to the story. um I know you may not be. This is the Peter Gabriel album, so he was still in Genesis then. You have any thoughts about this?
Well, I'm not a huge fan of Genesis, so but I'm not gonna, it's not about the band, it's about the album covers. But yeah, I mean, I don't particularly like this album cover either. I like the backstory of the album cover more than the actual album cover.
It reminds me a little of Andy Warhol, where it's very abstract.
Hmm.
You would never get the meaning um, of the album or the story just by looking at the artwork. You'd
Hmm.
have to listen to it. But once you do listen to it and you get the story, then the visual sort of comes into play and you appreciate it more. At least I did.
Well, that's cool too. That's like, you don't know what's going on in the album cover unless you
Hmm.
actually listen to the record,
Yeah, it
and
makes you
then
listen to it.
then it makes then everything kind of comes together. That's cool, and I like that concept.
Mhm.
But I'm not a huge fan of the album cover per se overall.
I was just, listening to the lyrics, how much a British rock band from the early 70s knew about Brooklyn and New York City, being from Brooklyn, and how much they detailed everything, and the way they wrote about, like, Brooklyn and New York City, particularly Times Square. And that's what kind of floored me, is like they're not even from here, but they were very descriptive and, capturing a lifestyle of this kid and his brother.
What year did you say this came out?
1974.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a song on there actually called "The Broadway Melody" of 1974, and it's all revolves around New York City. I guess at that time, maybe they spent some time here and were influenced by the people here and the places around New York City. Um,
I bet you they did. I mean, a lot of artists in that time period
mhm,
lived here in New York City.
mhm.
You know, um, Judas Priest was living in the city. You know,
Yeah, John Lennon.
John Lennon, obviously, yes, but the Stones were living here. Zeppelin was living down in the East Village.
Hmm.
Actually, Zeppelin, the house that on the cover of Physical Graffiti is the house that they were living in, and that's down on St. Mark's Place.
Hmm.
So like a lot of these artists, they were in the city. I won't be surprised if they weren't here at that time.
Yep. Okay. Let's go to the next one. Exodus, "Bonded by Blood."
This is this album is just the cover is bold for starters. I mean, I like this band. This is probably my favorite album by them. Some people may, Pleasure of Flesh might be other people's um, favorite, but this one for me is a great album. This is the first album I ever heard by them. It just you got good and evil. It's just the story of good and evil. And as you can see, they're like conjoining twins, so they're bonded by blood.
Now, what year
Um,
was this? Do you remember?
Offhand, no. This
Was it
is
high school?
yeah. It was. I would say mid '80s.
Okay.
Um, but offhand, I can't tell you um the exact year. But
W- Was this album inspired by, remember the album with Born Again, where it's like a baby and it's kind of like a devil? Was there some inspiration?
I don't think so.
Because
Um,
that's what it reminded me of.
you're talking about I mean no, you're talking about the
Black Sabbath.
Black Sabbath album. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. No, I don't think so. I don't think that was inspired by that at all. Um, Blinded by Blood, from what I can see here, is 1985. It came out. It says
Okay.
so, and this was their first album. Before they got rid of the singer left. They got a new singer in. So this one was with the original singer, but this is also after Kurt Hammett had left the band to join Metallica,
Okay. So
obviously because it was '85. But
85.
yeah, um, and there's but like I said, this just like it's very bold. It's simple but bold. There's a lot going on there, and there's some like you know some deep you know some deep meaning there.
Hmm.
And what people don't realize, obviously, is that Kurt Hammett used to play in the band, but around '84, right before this album came out, there was a a thing called Combat Tour, and Exodus, Slayer, and Venom all played a show at Studio 54 when it was still a disco.
Hmm.
That I wish I would have been able to go to that show. That would must have been a sight to see.
Sure. Sure. And the artist, do you know anything about the artist?
No, I don't.
Okay. It's,
I'm sure it's probably like a friend of the band that's some local guy from San Francisco,
yeah, it's pretty good
and
though. I mean,
you know.
I think they really capture what they're trying to say here.
But now they re-release this album, and all the re-releases, you don't get this image. It just says, "Bonded by Blood" on kind of like on diagonal in red on the album cover. I
Hmm.
think people just probably found this too offensive. You know,
Okay. All right. All right. So we had Genesis and Exodus. We're having like chapters of the Bible in this review. Let's go to the next one. Oh, this is the Moody Blues Days of Future Past with the London Orchestra. So this is a watercolor painting. And again, a lot of psychedelic, a lot of use of color, reds, blues, and then the gradients. Fantastic album. But again, I chose this album before I even I maybe heard one song Tuesday or Nights in White Satin. I remember that song, but I like the song and I really like the album cover, so I bought it, and the whole thing is great. And the story of this one is it goes from morning to night, and every song is, a different part of the day. Tuesday Afternoon is one of the most popular Moody Blues songs, and that's like right in the middle of the album. And then Nights in White Satin they end with, and it's really I don't know. It's a concept album, great artwork, great orchestration, and really good songs behind the orchestration. It's nice to have a nice orchestra, but you have to have good songs too. Your thoughts on this?
well, the album it's a good album, that's for sure. And I like the concept. It just goes from morning to night, and each song is a different part of the day. I love that. The artwork is very good. Do you know who did this artwork?
I don't.
Mm. It actually kind of, I mean, it's watercolor, but it kind of reminds me of a Picasso almost.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah,
you know.
exactly, exactly. Do you think they should have maybe not put all this stuff up here and had the whole album this painting?
I I think so. I think they should have got that whole bar off the top of it or something like that.
Hmm. Hmm.
It kind of takes away from it.
Right, right. Yeah, I guess they wanted to just mention that with the London Orchestra, but they could have made this less prominent and give it more area for the
Yeah,
actual artwork.
true. But you see how there's like a kind of a little white border around
Yeah.
the thing.
Mhm.
I would have, if it was me, kept the whole image, made the whole size, and around that white border, just put all that information around the white border. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm. Mhm.
So it would, then people would be nice because the people had to flip the album cover around to read everything that was going on.
Yep, that's true. Buffalo Springfield used to do this kind of border thing here with like the different, the record company and in stereo and all that stuff. You don't
Yeah.
see too much of that today. All right, let's go to the next one. Iron Maiden, Somewhere
Oh,
in Time. This one I know is 1986, but this is your pick.
yeah. Well, this album cover, I mean, the album itself is good. I mean, I think it's probably one of the last good Iron Maiden albums, in my opinion.
Hmm.
But people may beg to differ. But there are this whole album cover, the front, the back, and the inner portion of it, because this is a full, bifold album. Um, there's images throughout the whole thing. There are over 30 hidden features on this that point to different either songs, albums themselves, um, places where they used to either play at and stuff like that. Um, and I don't want to give too much away. And whoever watches that, is watching this, you know, get get the album cover, listen to Iron Maiden stuff, and just try and pick out 30 plus things that you may see, that represent like various albums or songs or whatever.
Yeah, and we were talking about this. The song on here, "Wasted Years," the video
Mhm.
shows a lot of the album artwork and the song artwork because they had artwork for songs too, like Aces High, in that
Yeah.
video.
Yeah, I know. Like you can't see in this thing here, but on this is the front of the album cover. Right above the gun, there's an Eye of Horus, which represents like one of the songs of from Power Slave. You know, if you look to the right, it says Eddie Lives. That's like one of the live albums. But right above that, it says Acacia Avenue, which is a song 22. Acacia Avenue.
Hmm.
So there's lots of things like that are represented here. And if you're an Iron Maiden fan, most of you people already know this and have like picked these all out. But if you're not an Iron Maiden fan and you just dabble listening to them, get this album, listen to the album because it's a good album. But also try and see if you can pick out a spot.
Yeah, I
You
see
know,
the Eye of Ra. I could
yeah,
see it above the building. I like this because it's got lots of color to it, and the color's used very well. The shading of it. It's just it's another reason I bought the album because I only heard the first song, and then I bought it. I just love most of the album. I really like.
yeah. I had this album as it was like one of those like huge 6 foot posters hanging on my wall at one point.
Hmm. Hmm.
It's a really good album cover.
I like the font too. Somewhere in Time, where it's like time. I think Van Halen used some of that similar type of font in 1984.
Yeah, it's like kind of that early computerized
Hmm.
font. Yeah, but it's and as busy as this album cover is, and there's so much going on, you know, it's not cluttered.
I definitely agree, and I would say if you really like Scott said, if you really like want to find the Easter eggs in this and find it, you're better off getting the album and not the CD, or because it would
Yeah,
it'd just be too small. You really kind of need the album or a poster.
I'll post it. Being you're a fan of like the first two albums, especially the first album, right?
Mhm.
There's a little Easter egg there on the main page on the front cover from the first album cover.
Oh yeah, I
They use
mean, yeah.
they use that lamppost
Hmm.
on the right off to the right side of his leg from
Hmm.
from the first album cover.
And isn't the hand like coming out? Isn't wasn't on the second album cover there was a hand in Killers, like a hand, like when he has like an axe and he's using
Yeah,
it like there's a hand.
yeah, but this was more like robotic the
Yeah,
hand, so I don't
yeah.
know if it's just
It was just a regular hand on Killers.
yeah.
Yeah, I like it. I like it a lot. It's one of my favorite. Anything else?
No,
All right. Oh, and again, pencil drawing, not a lot of color here, but I like when an artist can capture something like this with pencil drawing and then adding in photography too. It's sonically it's great album, but I love you could see how the Beatles are sort of like transforming their look too. They don't have that sort of mop top it's sort of growing out the hair, and this is about 1965. Um, the song, this is an interesting album because it was pivotal, where half the songs are kind of pop songs and half the songs are going into like the second half of the Beatles sound. And also the rest of the Beatles albums after this had much more edgier artwork or creative artwork, I thought, as opposed to the early pop albums, was just trying to sell like hits. Um, love the drawings. I love the faces. I love the photography on top of the drawings. Um, do you have any input on this one?
Um, yeah, I mean, the album is a good album for sure. The artwork is good. I mean, it's nice. It's like pencil sketched, you know.
Hmm.
Um, the loved all the other images that, and it's kind of like layered, you know,
Hmm.
almost.
Hmm.
So
Yep. Yep. It's really good. Okay. Next. Why did you choose this one?
I didn't choose Prince. That's you.
I didn't choose this.
That's not me. I wouldn't have chose Prince.
Do you like looking at the naked picture like this? I don't know.
No, it's on your computer, not mine.
Listen, the only people who have access to the Dropbox is me, you, and Dave. So it
So then
had to be.
that's gotta be Dave.
He did, and I said if you want to be part of the album artwork, drop some images. So I guess it wasn't you. It's got to be him because,
I guess we know what Dave does on a Friday night.
well, look, I don't want to accuse, but his fingerprints are all over this. But whatever. Let's just. I think Prince is great, but I wouldn't have chosen this as my favorite artwork.
No, far from it.
Okay. Okay, so this is the Blue Stones. This is a new band. I wanted to put a couple of new bands in, and really good. They're on Q104, and I like any drawings like outer space stuff. And I like what I really like about this is like sort of like it's like the static screen on his face, so it could be just anything. And I like the purple and blue tones and like the gradient, how it goes from blue to like dark to then purple and to light here, and then he's just kind of like floating in outer space. Sonically, great album. But they have different versions of this. They have different. Uh, it's the same album cover, but it's different shades, like different gradients. They have one that's a little more orange and yellow, and I like them a lot. I just, when I saw this album cover, it just kind of stuck in my head. There's some things visually that just stick in my head, and then being that the album was good, it just kind of like, did it for me. Do you have any opinion about this?
Well, the album cover is I haven't heard the band, so I don't know what the band sounds like. But the album cover is very simple. It's cool. The image with the coloring within his spacesuit, which is obviously it's like the nebula,
Mhm.
the
Yeah, yeah.
and I'm sure the other images are just other parts of
Hmm.
of it. The like fuzz and the snow, so in the helmet, it kind of like almost reminds me of like, you remember Groove Tube, the movie.
Yep.
Like, so it's like the TV with just the white,
Hmm.
snow in it,
White noise. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So it's cool, it's simple,
It's it's simple in it, but it's creative. They did a lot with very little. You know,
yeah.
I think it's good. And the reason I put this is because it's like I said, it's a pretty new band, and for a band to sound this good and to be this visually creative is something that just sticks out. I don't see a lot of this stuff today with new groups.
Hmm.
All right, let's go to the next one. Okay, this is
Ah,
Rolling Stones, Satanic. What's the name of this album?
our Satanic Majesty's Request.
Yeah. Were they trying to like do like a Sergeant Pepper here or something
Well,
like that?
here's the thing, and this album came out the same year as Sergeant Pepper came out,
Hmm.
and this is actually kind of almost poking fun at the Sergeant Pepper album cover, because the Stones were not really fans of the Beatles, and they were kind of hokey,
Hmm.
so they were kind of poking fun at the album with doing this cover. And yeah, I'm sure you like this because it's very psychedelic as well.
I do.
But here's the thing with this album cover that some people don't realize, especially newer kids now. When the first pressing of this that came out, the album cover is kind of thick. It was actually one of those Magic Motion like 3D plastic things on the cover. So if you held the album cover at certain angles, the heads of the Rolling Stones would move and face other directions. So you had this like motion thing going on when you move the record around. Also, because they're also poking fun at the Beatles, and you guys can go there and download the image if you want. Look, but they had hidden all four of the Beatles' faces within the album cover.
In here?
In there, yes.
Oh wow, I didn't know
So
that.
yeah, so it's another little Easter egg thing. So if you have the album cover, pull it out, look for it. It's harder to find them, I guess, when you have the 3D imaging going on.
Hmm.
But with the solid image, you can actually see the faces pretty clear.
I like the album cover. I just don't like this blueness around it and white. I rather the whole album cover be this. I'm not crazy about this stuff here.
I
That's
agree.
just my opinion. Because I think this is very colorful, and I think I like it. It's just I don't see, or why did it have to be so big? Like, couldn't it have been like just a little more of an
Half
outline?
half the size,
Yeah,
yeah.
half the size or one third of the size. Now, did the Beatles get annoyed at this album
I don't think
cover?
so. I don't know. I don't know if they realized that they're poking fun at them
Okay.
about it or not.
Mhm. All right. And this was what? Now, this must have been like Sergeant Pepper 67 or
Yeah,
68,
same,
something like that.
same 67. Yeah, same
Yeah.
year the Sergeant Pepper came out.
Right. Right. Okay. And I don't know too many songs. I don't. This is the one album I don't have. I have a lot of the Stones album, but I know. I think there's 2,000 Man on here that I remember. But yeah, I like the actual cover itself. Okay, let's go to the next one. This is Tool Lateralius. Um, I like all the two albums. This is my favorite because of the artwork and because of the music, but it's just, and it comes with all this extra artwork inside. It comes with like these slides and everything, and it's extreme, very, very colorful. Um, using sort of like biology and all these kind of things that they put here. I'm not an expert on artwork. It's just when I see this, I really, really like it, especially when it's got good songs on it too. So this is one of if I had a top 10, this would be in my top 10, probably in my top 5 as far as album artwork. I really like the detail to like the skeletal system and the muscular system, and then it's like this thing. It's like he's almost like a saint or something. Um, what do you think?
Um, I I like it. It's definitely colorful. I like it's kind of like almost the Eye of Horus, going around, the edges there. Very there's like seems like there's lots of like a couple different religions going on there. So you kind of almost have the Eye of Horus. You have the eye and the palm of the hand, kind of representing you know Hindu. Then there's like that almost like that pentagon thing in the back, which is you see sometimes in some of the Hindu symbols. Um, the colors are great.
Yeah, I like the
Um,
colors.
the back portion reminds me. Remember the toy spirograph you get as a kid.
Hmm.
Yeah, it looks like that they bought one of those and just went around and did something with the spirograph.
Yeah, they have one song. It's not called Spiral, but it's like swinging on a spiral, and it's really it's good. Some people might find this offensive, but I don't think it's offensive.
No, I don't think it's offensive. I just wonder what like there's got to be a reason for like all the eyes and what each of those eyes represent, and I'm sure on the
So,
picture.
yeah, he this artist, he's done just about all their album covers, and I've seen that eye before on other album covers too, or hints of it. And but this reminds me of I think in high school when we had human physiology, there was like this kind of drawing with the man with the skeletal system, and that's what it reminded me of when I
Mm.
first saw it. But I like it a lot. I think the artist is great, and I like how he's has like electricity coming out of his body, or it looks like some kind of electric.
Well, I wonder if that because maybe it's not like maybe this has nothing to do with the eye Horus. Maybe it has to do more Hinduism, and that's like your aura, or
Yep.
the figure's aura.
Yep. Yep. Okay. Very good. All right. Next one. Okay. This is Beatles Abbey Road.
Yeah. So this is first off, it's a good album, and this is a lot going on here, and you may not know it. But so for those of you who are Beatle fans, know everything that's going on with this album cover and the Beatles. For those of you who don't, there's this whole conspiracy theory that back in like 66 or 67, that Paul McCartney had gotten into a car accident and had died, and they replaced him with some sort of double, right? And so over the years there have been backwards messages on prior songs, like on Strawberry Fields and some other songs, like Paul is saying Paul is dead and I buried Paul and stuff like that. And I think people, they played into that with this album cover. So there's a few different meanings with this album cover. So as you can see, they're walking across the street. So let's talk about the how they're leaving is important. Okay. So where this was taken is like right down the road from Abbey Road Studios, right? So if you see how they're leaving, like, John Lennon is the first in line, right? And this was the last studio album recorded by the Beatles, right? After this, they broke up, and it was meant, and it was said that like John Lennon left the band first, right? And you see how this is going. They're actually walking where this was taken. They're actually walking away from Abbey Road Studios, and John is first. So John is like actually leading the way, the first to leave the band and leave the studio. So that is one thing that's happening here. The other thing, and there's a few hints here throughout the thing. So Paul is supposed to be dead. So if you look at them, right, and the way they're dressed, they say no, but other people say differently. If you look at, Paul, John Lennon is the priest, right? The Ringo is a congregation. Paul is supposed to be the corpse of the dead person. Again, if you see, he's not wearing shoes on his feet. It's supposed to represent, I don't know if that meant anything, but he's supposed to be the dead person. And then George Harrison, just regular jeans, and
Is
looks
he
like he's
like the
wearing
grave digger or
a
something?
grave digger, exactly. Now, here, if you look in the background, there's like a cop car, and that type of car usually they say shows up during like accidents and stuff like that. That's the car that they would usually send. That was supposed to represent the car crash he got into. But also on the Volkswagen Bug, if you look on the license plate, and you probably can't see it here, you have to really zoom in. It says 28 if, and that's supposed to mean Paul was supposed to be 28 years old if he had survived the crash. That's what they're saying, and that's what that's supposed to represent.
Okay.
So there's supposed to be all sorts of hidden meanings on this album cover stating that Paul's dead. Now, is he dead? Who knows? They just might be playing into this whole conspiracy theory, Now, I have sent you an image of the back of the album cover. I don't know if it's the next slide or not, but I won't worry about it too much. Yes. So now, another thing that represents death here is, usually, a skeleton, right? After your body decomposes. If you look right to the left of the swell of the woman's back, there's actually the shadow, cast a shadow, it looks like a skull.
Yeah, I see it.
Representing, again, death, So there's all these like little hidden things on the album cover that,
Well, not just the skull, but like this black here looks like a body, like here's the arms, it looks like
yeah.
almost a body.
So there's a lot of that stuff that goes on here. Now, like I said, this is they probably really played into the whole Paul is dead thing, and they really thought this out.
Now he's smoking a cigarette. Does that have any meaning?
I don't think so.
Or it could be like, when they give somebody their last cigarette and
Could be, but he wasn't like executed or put to death. He died in a car crash. So I don't know.
maybe he was smoking a cigarette while he was in the car crash.
Maybe could be, or maybe he went up in a ball of flames in the car, and that's
Oh, I'd hate to think
ash.
that.
Well, it could be now his body's turned ashes to ashes, dust to dust, cigarette ashes. I don't know. Could be
I think
represent something.
it's a great way to sell records, but I mean, me personally, I don't buy into conspiracy theories. And if they did find another guy like him, then that person is super talented too.
Well, maybe now they could probably find somebody that's super talented, but back then probably not.
Mhm.
But I think it's just all.
Sell
It's
records.
all. Yeah, it's a sell records, of course.
Mhm. Just like when they had the Magical Mystery Tour, and which one of them was the Walrus, like that kind of thing.
Yeah, and the Eggman.
The Eggman, yeah. All right, good. It's one of my favorite albums too, musically. All right, so this is Monophonics, band from San Francisco, soul, blues. I think this is their third album, 2012. Really good sound, full horn section, but again, psychedelic. I like the orange and purple is not really used that much these days. It was probably used back in the 60s a lot, but it's to me, it looks like an eyeball that is just colored in with orange and purple. And the font is definitely, psychedelic monophonics. Great album. Um, there's a song on this album called There's a Riot Going On, and I think that was stemmed from the Oakland riots that started way back in 2011, 2012. And it's just a great sounding album, and like the Bluestones simplicity, it's just really an eyeball colored in with some really cool fonts. And I just it's one of those albums where I like the sound and the artwork. It's sort of like, the perfect marriage. I know you don't know this band too well, but what do you think about the artwork?
Artwork is cool. I like the color. The color scheme. I mean, I can see the eyeball for sure. I also think donuts,
Donuts.
donuts.
Yeah.
But I do like the color scheme. Yeah, I'm always a sucker for people who use purple. I
Especially
have
with
to like.
orange. That's a rare combination.
Yeah, yeah. Like you'll see purple and yellow.
Hmm.
Purple green, but yeah, not orange too much.
Yeah. It's really good. All right. I think,
And I like the font too, like that they use.
yeah, there was a Clint Eastwood movie called not Bronco Billy, Coogan's Bluff, and it came out in 1968. It was about an Arizona sheriff who came to New York. It was with Lee Cobb, and he goes to this like party to like find some bad guy, and they have the psychedelic band playing, and the font is very, very similar to this, and they got like that, sort of like that liquid bubble thing going on in the background, and
Yeah, it's
that's
I forget what they call that. Um,
sort of like, everybody's on acid, and
yeah,
it just looks like it. That's what it reminded me of when I saw the album cover, because I saw the movie first, of course. And I just, I like it. I think it's creative. It's just like musical exploration and visual exploration. So I like that. All right, I think we got one more. Oh, yes, this was mine. So this is Quaker City Nighthawks from Fort Worth, Texas. Uh, they're sort of like a southern blues rock band, and I kind of like this desert scene here with some kind of space theme in a car. The mountains remind me of the cartoon. Remember the Planet of the Apes cartoon?
okay.
And it had like that sort of like same kind of like, wasteland mountains kind of thing. That's what it reminded me of. Um, but I like this how they're matching southern rock with space rock, and I like that. This is their third album. This was 2016. They have about 5 albums out, but really good band. If you people should check them out.
Is
Do you have
it
any? I'm sorry.
No, I was gonna say, are these kind of like a doomy metal band, or
No, they're sort of like swamp blues is the best
okay,
way I can describe it, but with a little bit of soul and country music in it too, because they're from Dallas Fort Worth, and they're a little bit psychedelic too, and that's what this L Astronautic is sort of, And this reminds me of Spider-Man because I see like this like webbing and it's red and then it's blue. It just reminded me of like Spider-Man for some reason. Um, I kind of like illustration. When I first thought of it, I thought of who's that band, the Gorillas. They
yeah,
do this kind of artwork, like something like this. It's sort of psychedelic but edgy,
yeah,
and that's what it reminded me of.
yeah. Well, the band Gorillaz, those guys actually do cartoon stuff. They do
Mhm.
the Tank Girl, the cartoon,
Right,
the comic. They
right.
draw that. That's their stuff. So their imagery looks kind of like the Tank Girl cartoons.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
yeah, but the first thing that came to my mind when I saw this was the movie Heavy Metal,
Yes.
right?
Yep.
So that the mountains, the coloring, the shading, all that stuff right off the bat, and then the car reminds me like not doesn't look like the car, but it stood out as like remember they dropped the car in the beginning from the ship
Hmm.
and the lands.
Yep.
That whole scene. That's what this reminds me of.
Yeah, and I like it because I knew of this band before this album. I actually waited for this album to come out. But if I was in a record store and I didn't know them, I might, be interested in like listening to it or buying it just because I really like the artwork and it looks
Hmm.
pretty cool. So, um,
Well, how many albums do you think you might have bought over the course of your life just based on the artwork alone? You knowing nothing about the band.
I would probably say about one third. One
That
third.
that's a fair estimate. I would say the same thing. There's just certain ones that like, that's just like a wicked album cover. That's just a wicked album cover. And you buy it just because it looks cool.
Well, I used to go to remember when Sears used to have record department, and I used to see like these Deep Purple albums, and I thought they had really cool album covers, especially if they had a live album where they were. But my mother would never buy it for me. She thought it was like she's like, oh, the crazy people on drugs. You can have that. So I had to settle for like something else.
Mm. Yeah,
But
I remember going to like Record Factory and some of these other places, and you just go, yeah, you got the popular section. You just go right to the metal section
mhm.
because those albums and the metal and rock always had the best album covers because they're just put a lot of creativity and thought into it. And some of them are just so crazy. It's like, oh my God, it's like, what the hell's going on here?
Yeah, and you know what? They used to set up some nice displays. I remember in Sam Goody for like, records, and they'd be just writing. If as soon as you come in the door, they'd be like writing your face. Here's like new releases, and because they were albums, you could really see the artwork, whereas opposed to anything that was cassettes, it was sort of hidden because the cassettes were stacked on top of each other, so you would just see like the band name.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, and then, do you remember when CDs? Before they were just wrapped in shrink wrap, they
Yeah, they
they
came
came
in
in
a
those
long,
boxes, those
long
long
cardboard
boxes,
box. Yeah,
right? Because they were trying to kind of continue what albums do, like, oh, here's some artwork. It's like but most of the box was just a waste.
yeah.
It was just,
But there was a later on they started releasing. There was like they try to replicate the CD box, right? And it's actually it was actually the whole album. Like the box was actually the whole album cover. So once you unwrapped it, and it was like long, like those old boxes, but it kind of unfolded and you folded it in, and it's like so the cover was like kind of a fold out,
mhm,
but it was like
mhm,
one big piece.
mhm.
Yeah. Um, but I mean, I like going to the record stores and look at those old CD boxes too, just
Mhm.
because you got more of the artwork on there.
They didn't last very long. The CD boxes, they went right to sort of that shrink wrap on the CD, right?
Yeah, I remember there was a record store down where I used to live, and you go in and was it no actually it was in the city. It was in the city. You go in there and they just had all those boxes like just tacked to the wall. It's just like
Yeah.
the whole wall is just like one big piece of artwork.
Yeah. Yeah, because they were trying to make a display and trying to get people excited about, because CDs were so much smaller, so they kind of wanted to keep that album visual going.
Yeah,
But nothing, I mean, when it comes to artwork, nothing could replace an album unless it's an actual poster. Um, so,
kind of like that Danzig album. It's like basically a poster when you pull
mhm.
it out.
Yeah, Scott's going to join us on the next one. The next one, we're going to have the hockey challenge, and Dave's going to join us for the trivia hockey challenge. So we look forward to that, and we'll see you then.